Mara set the committee card down, and then she turned on the bench, and her mouth was at the side of Nia's jaw, close, staying, the warmth of it against Nia's skin for one held breath. Nia's hands landed on the bench edge on either side of her thighs, and her shoulders went very still, and her chest did something in the vicinity of stopping. Mara pulled back to mouth distance and looked at her and said, "I wrote the acknowledgement letter to the committee. I didn't mention that." Not a confession, not an apology, a record being amended. If you want to hear uncensored, too hot for YouTube stories, check out my Patreon in the description. Tell us where you're watching from and subscribe. 3 years ago, Nia defended her dissertation in a room with 6 people in it, and Mara was one of them. And at the end of it, Mara said her name once in a register Nia had never heard from her, and shook her hand with both of hers and held it a beat too long, and then was entirely professional for the rest of the hour. Nia has thought about that handshake at intervals since then that she does not find worth cataloging. She did not tell Mara about the shortlist call before the official announcement. She thought about it for 3 days. She sat with her phone on the desk on the first day, and the email open on the second, and on the third, she made a decision that felt, at the time, structural rather than emotional, a category she has since revised. The 5 shortlisted books were announced on a Tuesday. By Wednesday evening, Nia had received 41 congratulatory messages and had read each of them twice, and was monitoring one inbox with a frequency she declined to name aloud. Mara's response came Thursday at 11:47 p.m. 2 sentences. The first was about the quality of the contribution to the field, specific, formal, correct. The second was, this was always going to happen. You knew that. No salutation beyond her first name, no sign-off beyond an initial. Nia has it in a folder she has not named. She has 17 of Mara's emails in that folder. That is not a meaningful number, she has told herself. That is not a count of anything. That is simply the number of messages from a former supervisor in a collegial correspondence about shared professional interests, which is what it is. She arrives at the reception at 7:15, which is not early by the standards of someone who genuinely wants to circulate, and which is not late by the standards of someone who has been standing outside in the October dark for 4 minutes deciding. The faculty club's main room is warm and wood-paneled and lit from above by amber pendant lights that pool on the long tables and make everyone look like they're inside a painting of themselves. There are perhaps 40 people. The shortlist is 5 names, and Nia's is the only debut book on it, and the only book by someone who does not have the word distinguished in their institutional profile, and this is a fact she has been carrying with a dry equanimity all week, which is distinct from peace. The first person she looked for when she arrived was Mara. Mara was already looking at the door. This is the kind of information Nia files incorrectly, which she is aware of, which does not prevent the filing. Mara is standing with 2 colleagues near the drinks table at the room's center, and she is wearing a dark charcoal blazer over a black silk blouse and dark trousers, and her jet black hair is up in a loose, high twist, with several strands fallen to her neck, and she is holding a glass at her side with no particular intention, and she is not looking at the door anymore. She is looking at the colleague to her left and nodding once at something that has been said, and the nod has the quality of someone who has finished thinking about a subject and is indicating this. The room has reorganized itself around her presence without anyone announcing the reorganization. Conversations at the perimeter have a different weight than conversations near her. Attention roots toward her the way attention roots toward the feature of a room that has the most structural authority. Not consciously, not in a way anyone present would admit to, but consistently, and with the reliability of physics. Nia knows this because she spent 5 years learning to be in a room with it. She takes a glass from the table by the door and goes to speak with Marcus Osi, who is on the shortlist for the second time, and who is generous about this in a way that is not performance, and she speaks with him for 20 minutes and with 3 other colleagues for varying intervals. And she does not look at Mara more than 4 times in that period, which is a number she is also not cataloging. By 8 o'clock, they have spoken directly exactly twice. The first exchange is at the drinks table. Mara moves to refill her glass at a moment that coincides with Nia's approach, and they are side by side for 30 seconds, and Mara says, "The contested landscapes framing. Did the committee mention the rural memory angle specifically?" It is not phrased as a question. Nia says, "They noted it as a methodological risk that paid off." Mara says, "It was never a risk." She picks up her refilled glass and turns back toward her colleague group without looking at Nia again, and this exchange has the shape of a professional compliment and the texture of something that was true before it was said. Nia stands at the drinks table for 6 seconds after Mara leaves it. The second direct exchange is at 9 o'clock, in passing. Nia is moving from one cluster to another, and Mara is crossing in the opposite direction, and their paths converge briefly in the room's center, and Mara says, in a low register that does not carry, "You're doing the thing where you're present and somewhere else at the same time." Nia says, "I do that at receptions." Mara says, "You do it specifically here." And then she continues in her direction, and Nia continues in hers. And Nia does not turn around, and she does not analyze the exchange for the remainder of the next 40 minutes. And both of these statements are accurate. By 9:15, most of the attendees have made their exits. The room thins with the gradual, decisive quality of a room that has completed its official function. Coats retrieved, final handshakes, the catering staff beginning the slow work of clearing the far end. The tables near the entrance are being cleared. The center of the room empties toward the perimeter, and both Nia and Mara, without consultation, have migrated toward the far window end, toward the long window bench that runs beneath the tall Georgian windows, where the last of the exterior light comes in, going blue-dark, the interior amber above it. They did not plan this. Nia is certain of that in the specific way she is certain of things she does not want to examine. By 9:30, they are on the same bench, approximately 6 inches apart, and there is a small table beside the bench, and Nia has set her book on it, the physical copy she was given by the committee. Face up, her name in embossed text on the cover, and Mara's name inside on a page neither of them has turned to. And Mara has picked up the committee card from somewhere and is turning it in her hands with the regularity of someone who does not notice they are doing it. The catering staff is still working at the far end. The sound of trolleys and glass and low conversation is a background that makes the window end of the room feel like a different place entirely. Warmer, more contained, the amber light from the pendant above them pooling specifically on the bench's left side, which is Nia's left shoulder, which she is aware of as a warmth that has a quality she is not naming. They are talking about the field, about the methodological turn in the last 5 years and what it has produced and what it has obscured. This is a conversation they have had in correspondence and in the margins of drafts and in the particular frequency of emails that arrive at 11 p.m. and are 3 paragraphs long and have the shape of something thought through over hours before being committed to a send button. Nia is good at this conversation. She is genuinely good at it, which is not the same as comfort and is not the same as ease, but it is real competence, and it is her most reliable self. Mara listens the way she has always listened, with the full front of her attention, not performative listening, but structural listening, the kind where the other person's words are genuinely being integrated and not merely received. Her head is slightly angled, her glasses held, but not being drunk from. When Nia is speaking, Mara's eyes do not drift to the room or the windows or anywhere else. This has always been one of the more expensive qualities about her. Nia has a specific awareness of her own voice when Mara listens to it in this mode. She is aware of whether her syntax is clean, whether her argument is landing at the right velocity, whether she has just used a metaphor that does not entirely hold. She is aware of this awareness, which is the academic condition of being your own first critic, and which is also not entirely what is happening right now. What is also happening right now, which Nia is monitoring with the part of her mind that functions as a naturalist observing terrain, is this. Mara's right hand, the one holding the committee card, has slowed its turning. The card has been going over in her palm, back, front, for 11 minutes, and in the last 40 seconds it has slowed and then stopped. The card is now face down in Mara's palm and not moving. Nia is midway through a sentence about the epistemological stakes of landscape as archive when Mara sets the card face down on the table beside the book. And Nia finishes her sentence. And Mara turns on the bench, and her mouth is at the side of Nia's jaw. Close, the warmth of it deliberate and held for 1 breath. 2. A warmth that Nia's skin registers before any other part of her does. A warmth at the specific angle where jaw becomes throat, not a press, not quite a touch. Something between proximity and landing. Something in the interval between intending and doing. And Nia's hands go to the bench edge on either side of her thighs without instruction, and her shoulders are very still, and her chest is doing something she cannot at this moment categorize. Mara pulls back, not far. Mouth distance. The warmth remains as a trace on Nia's jaw, and Nia does not move toward it or away from it. Mara looks at her. Dark eyes, the amber light catching the left one more than the right, her expression containing a specific legibility that Nia knows, that has the precise structure of the most controlled version of an uncontrolled thing. I wrote the acknowledgement letter to the committee, Mara says. Her voice is the professor of cultural geography's voice, low, level, without excess. I didn't mention that. Not a confession, not an apology. A record being amended. Nia's throat is warm, not discomfort. Warmth, the warmth of something said, plainly that lands plainly. The warmth of information, received directly in the body. She is aware of her own swallow. She is aware of the 6 inches that no longer feel like 6 inches, or like a unit of measurement at all. She says, "When did you write it?" Mara says, "Before the announcement." The committee asked for supporting letters from field scholars. I volunteered. The catering trolley at the far end of the room makes a specific sound, wheels on parquet, and then stops. Nia says, "Did the committee know you supervised the dissertation?" "They knew," Mara says. "I disclosed it. They accepted the letter anyway." She says it without looking away from the window, which Nia reads correctly as the behavior of someone who has finished the administrative portion of an account and is now sitting in what it meant. Nia looks at her profile, the fallen strands at her neck, the line of the dark blazer's collar where it sits on the black silk blouse. Her right hand, now empty without the committee card, resting on her thigh with no particular intention. Fingers relaxed, but not loose. The hand of someone whose habitual precision has momentarily run out of object. This is the first crack. Nia catalogs it in the register she uses for things she's not going to act on immediately. What Mara has disclosed is not a breach. It is a specific extension of the supervisory relationship, an extension that used institutional standing in a non-visible professional channel, in a channel where the motivation would not be in the public record, where only Mara would know the full weight of what she was writing. To write a supporting letter for a former doctoral student is ordinary collegial practice. To volunteer one specifically for a book that spent 5 years under your direct critical attention, for a researcher whose formation you oversaw and whose work you shaped through proximity and argument and the specific attention that does not translate to anything formal. That is something that has a particular motivation. Neither of them has named the motivation. Nia has been not naming it for 3 years. She has been not naming it in 17 emails. In the correspondence, she wrote back about the epistemological questions Mara raised at 11 p.m., and the ones she did not write back about because the thing she wanted to say was not the thing the email exchange permitted. In the decision not to tell Mara about the shortlist before the announcement, which felt structural at the time, and has since revealed itself as the choice of someone who knew, on the level of the body if not the mind, that there would be a reception and they would both be at it, and there would be a moment at the end of the evening when the room had mostly cleared and they would be on a window bench, and she needed that moment to arrive without having already used up the thing it was going to contain. So she didn't tell Mara. She sat with her phone on the desk for 3 days and made the correct call, which was the structural call, which was also the call that got her here. She looks back at the window beside Mara and says nothing for a moment, and the sound of the catering staff at the far end is a low register, a companionable distance, and the amber pendant above them keeps its pool on her left shoulder, and she is aware of it as she is aware of Mara's empty hand on her own thigh and the committee card face down on the table beside her book. "How long did you spend on it?" Nia says. Mara is quiet for a beat. That is not a pause before speaking, but a consideration of whether the answer changes anything. 3 drafts, she says. Over 2 weeks. Nia looks at the window. The exterior dark has deepened, the last of the blue gone now, the glass giving back only the amber of the room and their 2 reflections, near and still. The first 2 drafts, Mara says, were about the work. She does not complete the sentence. She does not need to, and she knows she does not need to, and the not completing of it is its own kind of precision, the sentence ending exactly where it needs to end and not 1 word further, which is Mara in every form Nia has known her. The warmth at Nia's jaw where Mara's mouth was is still there, a ghost warmth, a memory the skin holds before the mind has filed it. She says, "What was the 3rd draft about?" Mara picks up her glass and finishes what remains of it. She sets it down. She does not answer immediately, and in the interval, her hand goes to the bench fabric instead of her thigh, and her index finger traces a slow path along the wool, not toward Nia, not away from her, a movement that has no destination, That is the hand of someone whose composed exterior is slightly exceeding its structural load. The third draft was about what the work came from, Mara says, which is a different subject. Nia's throat does the warm thing again. She breathes through it. She's very good at this, at receiving information that wants to move the surface and keeping the surface still. 5 years of doctoral formation under the most intellectually demanding supervisor in the department has made her excellent at this, which is also, she now recognizes, somewhat specific to the nature of the formation. Did the committee read all 3? She says. They received 1, Mara says. The third. The corner of Nia's mouth moves. It is not quite a smile, but it has the shape of 1, the specific shape of someone receiving confirmation of a thing they correctly understood. You sent the third, she says. It was the accurate one, Mara says, and there is something in the flatness of this, the complete lack of drama with which it is delivered, that lands in Nia's chest in a way that has no academic vocabulary. Behind them at the far end of the room, the catering staff pushes the last trolley toward the door. The sound of wheels on parquet, the gentle collision of glass, and then the door opening and closing, and then nothing. The room completes itself. The 2 of them on the window bench, and the amber light, and the exterior dark in the Georgian windows, and the book on the table with its acknowledgments page unturned, and the committee card face down, and Mara's index finger stopped on the wool, and 6 inches of bench between them that Nia is no longer measuring. Mara reaches for the book, both hands, slowly, deliberately, with the careful handling of something that belongs to someone else, the way you pick up a book that is not yours when the person who wrote it is watching. She takes it from the table with both palms flat against the covers, one at top and one at bottom, and she holds it for a moment before she opens it, and Nia watches her hands, the particular precision of them. The way they have always handled materials, as though material is worth the attention, whether that material is a text under critique, or a map on a seminar table, or, now, a book whose existence she watched being built from a first draft prospectus 5 years ago to this physical object under the amber light. She opens to the verso page. Nia does not look at the page. She looks at Mara's face. Mara reads her own name. Nia watches this. The way Mara's eyes move across the line, the way they arrive at whatever Nia wrote, and the way the line of her jaw does something very small and very specific. A microscopic softening that would not be visible to anyone who had not spent 5 years learning the architecture of her composure and what it looks like when it makes an accommodation. Mara exhales. It is a single breath, controlled, fully controlled, except at the very end of it, where the control is costing something. An exhale that is doing the work of staying a professional exhale while carrying more than a professional exhale can hold without showing it. Her right hand, which is at the book's lower corner, tightens. Not a grip, a tightening, 5 fingers finding more contact with the spine, and then slowly, opening again. All 5 fingers opening back to flat. Both actions are visible. She does not hide either. She turns the book so Nia can see the page too, rotates it in both hands, slowly, so the verso faces outward, so Nia's own words are legible from where she sits. The amber pendant light pools on the open page, and on Mara's hands, and on the word, professor, and what follows it, and the specific formulation of gratitude that Nia wrote at midnight 4 months ago, and which she has not reread since. Nia reads it. She reads it in Mara's presence for the first time, which is different from writing it alone and different from reading it in proof, and the difference lands in a specific location just below her sternum. Mara says nothing. The book rests between them on the bench. Mara has lowered it to the surface between them, still open, and her fingers remain at the lower corner, the pads of 3 fingers just touching the edge of the page. And Nia is aware of the warmth coming from that proximity in the way she is aware of the amber pendant's warmth on her shoulder. A warmth that has a location and a temperature and a quality of intention. You didn't read this before tonight, Mara says. It is not a question. I sent you a copy when the proofs came back, Nia says. I thought you'd looked. I didn't open it, Mara says. I've had it on my desk for 6 weeks. Nia looks at her. 6 weeks, she says. I was going to read it after the reception, Mara says. When it was less, she stops. When the sentence doesn't continue, Nia's awareness sharpens in the specific way. Awareness sharpens when someone with Mara's precision stops a sentence before its end, not because she doesn't know the word, but because the word is accurate and the accurate word is too specific for the current degree of the evening. Less what? Naya says. Mara looks at the window. The reflections in the glass, both of them, the dark outside, the amber above, the bench. She looks at this for a moment, and then she looks back at Nia. And the thing in her expression is the same thing Nia has been not naming in the emails. Still contained, still entirely deliberate, but visible now in the way something is visible when the room has finished clearing and it is only two people and the window and the choice of what to do with the space. Less weighted, Mara says. Nia's hands are in her lap. She's aware of the book between them open, Mara's fingers at the lower corner of the page, the verso line still legible in the amber light. She's aware of the ghost warmth at her jaw where Mara's mouth was. Still there, the skin still holding it, her body's record of the last 40 minutes still open on a page she has not turned. She says, "It was always going to be weighted." "Yes," Mara says. "I know." The way she says it, the flatness, the complete absence of hedging, the acknowledgement arriving like a document being signed, is the most expensive thing she has said all evening, and it lands in Nia's chest in the precise location where the most expensive things have always landed. Mara's finger at the book's lower corner does not move. Nia does not move. The room is very still. The amber pendant above them makes its warmth. The Georgian windows hold the dark and their own reflections and the city somewhere beyond, which has no idea what is happening inside the faculty club at 10:15 p.m. and does not need to. Mara stands. She stands in the way she always moves, not abruptly, not dramatically, with a kind of organized intention that is itself a form of composure. She crosses the room toward the door with the quality of someone who has made a specific decision, and Nia watches her, without turning her body, tracking the movement from the corner of her eye. The amber light catches the dark silk of the blouse as Mara walks, the blazer opening slightly with her movement, the high twist of hair with its fallen strands. At the door, Mara's hand goes to the handle, and she turns the lock. The sound of it, a small, definitive click in the now empty room, lands in the center of Nia's chest like a tuning fork finding its note. It is a practical act, a caretaking act. The act of someone making a room safe for what the room is about to contain. And it is something else entirely, and both are true, and Mara does not look at Nia when she does it, which is its own form of precision. The act does not need to be performed because it is not performance. It is a statement of fact. It is a sentence with no subject and no object and complete grammatical accuracy. Mara comes back. She does not go to the far end of the bench where there would be 12 inches between them. She sits where she was before, 6 inches, the book still open between them. Her blazer, Nia notices, coming off before she sits, laid along the windowsill behind her, the dark silk blouse now the only layer and the collar loosened at the neck, a single button open from where it was when the evening began. She sits, she looks at Nia. "There are 17 things I've drafted in the last 3 years and not sent," she says. The number lands. Nia is very still. "Tell me which ones you guessed," Mara says. The room holds the sentence. Outside, the city goes about its evening. All the lit windows and the traffic and the ordinary density of October night in a university city. And inside the faculty club's long reception room with its cleared tables and its amber lights and its Georgian windows and its 2 women on a window bench, the sentence sits in the air between them like an entire correspondence, finally arriving at its subject. Nia's blouse is the deep burgundy she chose this morning with the same not quite named intention as the blush lace bralette she bought the week the shortlist call came. Both of them the choices of someone who told herself she was dressing for a professional occasion and has since revised that framing. The top button of her blouse has been open since before she arrived. The lace is visible at the collar, the pale blush of it against the burgundy, and her internal voice notes with dry precision. She dressed for a shortlist reception, for a book about things that were buried and are now in the record, and this is what that looks like at 9:45 p.m., on a bench in amber light, with someone asking her what she guessed. She says, "The ones about the methodology were real correspondence." "Yes," Mara says. "The ones at 11 p.m., Nia says, weren't only about the methodology." Mara holds her gaze. "No," she says, "they weren't." "The one in March," Nia says. "The one about the conceptual pivot in Chapter 3. "I wrote 4 versions of that," Mara says. "You received the 4th. What did the first 3 say?" Mara is quiet for a beat. Not the beat of someone choosing whether to answer, but the beat of someone choosing the most accurate form of the answer. The first one, she says, told you the pivot was wrong. It wasn't wrong, Nia says. No, Mara says. The second draft acknowledged that. And the third. Mara looks at the book between them, the verso page open, the amber pendant above, pooling its warmth. Her hand at the book's lower corner has not moved. The third said something about why I was concerned about the pivot, she says, which was a different subject. Nia looks at the side of her face, the profile, the fallen strands at her neck, the way the dark blouse has a quality in the amber light of being very specifically there. A material fact, a physical presence, a thing occupying space with the full weight of everything it contains. You didn't send the third, Nia says. I sent the fourth, Mara says, which said the pivot was structurally sound with one modification. It was, Nia says. Yes. Mara looks back at her. The modification was also correct. Nia's mouth does the not quite smile again. She's aware of her own breathing, steady, deliberately steady, the steadiness of someone applying the composure they developed over 5 years in the specific company of the person they are now applying it to, which is the particular irony of the situation she has never fully articulated until this moment. She looks at Mara's hand, the 3 fingers at the book's corner, the open quality of them, not holding, not loose, resting with intention, the way a hand rests when it is deciding. Then she looks at the bench fabric between Mara's hand and her knee. Mara's index finger moves. It is a small movement. A tracing along the wool of the bench, one fingertip moving in a slow path on the fabric, following no particular direction except this one. From the book's corner toward the center of the bench, toward the 6-inch interval that is less than 6 inches now, the interval that has been contracting by immeasurable fractions for the last hour, the interval that is at this moment, with Mara's finger moving slowly on the wool in its direction, something that has the quality of a sentence approaching its final word. The finger stops, 1 inch from Nia's knee. The warmth from Mara's hand at that proximity is specific. It is the warmth of a body that has been 6 inches away and is now the width of a word away. And it is different from the ambient warmth of the room, and different from the amber pendant's warmth, and different from the ghost warmth at Nia's jaw where Mara's mouth was. It is particular. It is present. It is a warmth that is a statement about restraint, about what restraint looks like when it is active, when it is chosen, when it is costing something to maintain. Mara's hand goes very still. Nia does not move her knee toward it. She does not move her knee away from it. What happens in her chest is not audible. But it is specific, and Mara's hand at its stop location does not move for a long moment. And Nia understands that the stillness is responsive. That whatever happened in her chest reached across the inch of air and registered, and the hand's stillness is an acknowledgement of the registration. She breathes. She says, 17 is a specific number. It's accurate, Mara says. You counted. I count most things, Mara says. And the flatness of this, the complete and undefended truth of it, lands in Nia's chest alongside everything else that has been accumulating there since 7:15 p.m. What was the 17th, she says. Mara's finger on the bench does not move. The warmth of her hand at that stopped location is constant and specific and present. The 17th, Mara says, was written after the shortlist announcement. How long after? 20 minutes, Mara says. I had the subject line open already. Nia looks at the window. Their reflections in the dark glass. 2 women on a bench, the amber light on both their left shoulders, the book open between them, the 6 inches that are not 6 inches. She looks at this for a moment and then looks back and says, What did it say? Mara turns her head and looks at Nia, and the expression she is wearing is the most specific version of containment that Nia has ever seen on her. Not the professional armor of the lecture hall or the seminar room, not the measured distance of the senior scholar engaging a junior colleague, but the containment of someone who has been holding something with both hands for 3 years and is aware that the room has cleared and the door is locked and the only person present is the one the holding has been about. It said, Mara says, and then she stops, and then she says, I'll tell you what it said. She moves her hand from the bench fabric. Not toward Nia's knee, past the increment of the last inch, across the brief wool distance, and she places her palm flat on Nia's knee with a warmth that is immediate and complete. the full warmth of her hand, neither cold nor hot, the exact temperature of something that has been held at a careful distance for a specific length of time, and has finally arrived at the surface it was always moving toward. Nia looks at the hand. Her own hand, in her lap, does not move. Her breathing is still deliberate. The back of her neck has gone alert in a way that has no professional vocabulary, a quality of alertness that runs from the base of her skull to the top of her spine, a line of warmth that her body is mapping with the precision of someone who has been not imagining this for 3 years. The 17th said, Mara says, her voice in the lower register, the register Nia has heard in the margin of one phone call and in the last sentence of one email, and in the moment at the defense when she said Nia's name and shook her hand with both of hers. I should have told you when you defended. I had the words for it then. I made a different decision, and I would like to make a different one now. The amber light is very still above them. The exterior dark presses the Georgian windows from outside, the city's ambient glow making the glass faintly luminous. And Nia looks at Mara's face in the amber and the blue, the profile, the high twist with its fallen strands, the dark silk blouse with its one open button, and she says, "What decision are you making now?" Mara's hand on her knee is still. The pressure of it, even deliberate, not asking, is a pressure Nia's body is registering in the way it has been registering Mara's presence all evening, which is to say in every available location at once, which is to say in the place below her sternum, and the warmth at her jaw and the alertness along the back of her neck and the particular quality of her own breathing. The one I should have made in the corridor, Mara says, after your defense. There were 6 people in the room, Nia says. There were 4 in the corridor afterward, Mara says. Then 2. Then 1, because I walked away. The specific flatness with which she delivers this, the complete willingness to account for the walking away, to name it plainly, to put it in the record as a specific thing that happened with a specific motivation and a specific consequence, is the most unguarded thing Nia has heard from her in 5 years, and it lands with all the weight of 5 years' accumulated context, which is substantial. Nia says, "You walked away very quickly." "Yes," Mara says. "I was watching." "I know," Mara says. "I felt it." The word felt in Mara's precise formal register is not a small word. It is a word Nia can count on one hand having heard from her. It is a word that arrives in this sentence with the full structural weight of a scholar who does not deploy approximation and who has just deployed a phenomenological claim about a 3-year-old corridor with her full scholarly precision. Nia's hand moves. She does not entirely decide to do this. Her body is slightly ahead of her, which she is aware of and does not correct. She puts her hand over Mara's hand. On her knee, the warmth of palm on the back of hand, her fingers covering Mara's fingers. And she holds it there, and the warmth is doubled and immediate and specific in the way that doubled warmth between 2 people who have been not touching for 3 years is specific. Mara's hand under hers does not move. Then it turns, slowly, deliberately, Mara's hand turning under Nia's until the palm is facing up. Until their hands are palm to palm on Nia's knee. And Mara's fingers close, and Nia's fingers close, and the holding is mutual, and it is the first mutual thing that has happened in this room this evening and possibly in 3 years. And Nia is very aware of the quality of it, the warmth, the deliberateness, the specific thing it means when someone whose precision is total holds your hand with that same precision. The book is still open between them, in between the verso page, Mara's name in Nia's formulation of gratitude, the amber pendant above it all, the committee card, face down on the table, the window with the reflections, the locked door. They are on the bench, and Mara's blazer is on the windowsill, and their hands are clasped on Nia's knee, and neither of them is speaking, and the room has the quality of a room that has finished being a public space and is in the process of becoming something else, something with no official terminology, something that is operating at the level of the precise and the true. Nia says, "Read me the 17th. "I deleted it," Mara says. "When?" "Before I came tonight." Nia looks at her. "Why?" "Because I didn't need it anymore," Mara says. "I was going to say it instead." The city outside continues without them. The Georgian windows hold the dark and the amber, and the 2 of them, which is a specific configuration the city will never know about, which is correct, which is how it should be. Say it then, Nia says. Mara looks at their hands, at the verso page, at the window, at Nia. You were the best doctoral student I have ever supervised, she says, which is a professional statement, and you became the most. She stops, begins the end of the sentence again. You became someone I have been in correspondence with for 3 years about professional matters and other matters that I categorized incorrectly because the correct categorization had structural implications I was not prepared to navigate in a supervisory role, and which I should have named when the role ended, and which I am naming now. Nia's chest is doing the thing it has been doing at intervals all evening, but at this interval it is doing it more specifically and with more accumulated weight than it has yet done, which is the effect of 5 years of context arriving in a single sentence, delivered with complete academic precision. That's the 17th, she says. Most of it, Mara says. What's the rest? Mara's hand in hers tightens, fractionally, and then releases back to the even holding. And this is the same tightening and opening Nia watched when Mara read the acknowledgments page. And she recognizes it now as the physical signature of Mara holding something that is almost past the capacity to hold. The rest, Mara says, is more specific. Tell me the specific part. Mara is quiet for a moment. That is not hesitation. It is the moment of someone who has reached the end of the architecture they built to contain a thing and is standing at the boundary of it, looking at what is on the other side. I have thought about you, she says, with a frequency and a specificity that has no academic vocabulary. Nia looks at her. The amber above, the dark behind, the profile that she has known for 8 years, and the face that has been looking at her differently than the profile does since the beginning of the evening. No academic vocabulary, Nia repeats. Nia. None, Mara says, and the completeness of the admission, no qualification, no framing, the bare declaration in the flat register, is the third version of Unguarded in 5 minutes, and each one is more expensive than the last. Nia's free hand, which has been in her lap, moves to the book. She picks it up, the open verso facing upward, and she looks at her own words in Mara's handwriting context, and she says, I wrote your name 9 different ways before I found the one that was accurate. Mara turns her head. 9, she says. The first 8 were either too formal or too... Nia stops. Too accurate. I wrote the 9th version, which is accurate but controlled. What was the 8th version? Nia sets the book down. She looks at the window, their reflections, the amber, the dark. The 8th version, she says, said that you were the standard by which I measured every argument I made for 5 years, and that I have not stopped measuring, and that the measurement is not only intellectual. The room is very quiet. The amber light holds. Mara's hand in hers does not loosen. You cut it to the 9th, Mara says. The 9th is accurate, Nia says. It's just less specific. Mara looks at her for a long time. The amber catches both eyes evenly now. Nia has turned enough toward her that the light finds both. And what is in them is the thing from the emails, the thing from the corridor, the thing that has been operating in the formal architecture of the supervisory relationship for 8 years and in the formal architecture of collegial correspondence for 3, and which is no longer operating in any formal architecture at all. How specific was the 8th version? Mara says. Accurate, Nia says. I told you, too accurate for an acknowledgments page. Tell me the 8th version, Mara says. Nia looks at her. The question is not a request. It has the form of a request and the weight of something else. The weight of someone who has just said frequency and specificity in a locked room in a level voice and is now asking for reciprocity with the same precision she asks for accuracy in everything. You already know the 8th version, Nia says. I want to hear you say it, Mara says. The quality of this, the directness of it, and the complete absence of performance, the taking of what she wants with the same precision she applies to every other thing, is one of the most expensive qualities Mara has ever had. Nia has been aware of it for 8 years in the registered and incorrectly filed way, and is aware of it now with nothing incorrectly filed, everything exactly where it belongs. She says, I wrote, the 8th version said, to Professor Mara. She stops, starts again. It said, to Mara, who was the most exacting and the most present presence in my formation, not only of this book, but of everything I understand about the relationship between evidence and what evidence cannot contain, and who has occupied the distance between professional and personal with a precision I have spent 3 years trying to describe accurately and have not managed, and which I no longer intend to manage, and which this book is in part an attempt to honor. Silence. The amber pendant above them makes no sound. Nia's jaw, where Mara's mouth was earlier, is still warm, still holding the warmth, the skin still in the process of filing it in whatever the correct location is. That's the 8th version, Mara says. Yes. The 9th is in the book. Yes. Mara stands. For a moment, Nia thinks she is going to the window or to the door or to some neutral location, and her body has a response to this thought that is immediate and specific and not describable in neutral terms. But Mara does not go to the window. She takes her blazer from the windowsill and sets it across the back of the bench. And then she sits again, closer this time, and there is no longer any meaningful measurement between them, and the amber light is on both their shoulders, and Mara's hand is still in Nia's hand, and Mara says, "The 8th version should be in the book." "It would have changed the nature of the acknowledgments page," Nia says. "Yes," Mara says. "It would have. The committee would have read it." "Yes," Mara says. And the specific quality of the yes, the absence of any implication that this would have been a problem, the complete comfort with the hypothetical visibility, is Mara in her most characteristic form, which is the form where her composure and her desire are running on the same track, pointed in the same direction, making the same argument. Nia turns toward her on the bench. The book is between them still. Mara's fingers at the corner, but the distance is not between them anymore. It is simply the bench, and the book, and the amber light, and Mara's face close enough that Nia can see the detail of her, the precise line of her jaw, the faint trace of mascara that the evening has worn to its most natural version, the dark eyes that have always been the most legible and least readable thing about her simultaneously. "The 17th draft," Nia says. "The one you deleted." "Yes." "It was more specific than what you said." Mara holds her gaze. "Yes. Tell me how specific." Mara's free hand, the one not holding Nia's, moves to the book and closes it. The verso page disappears. She sets it on the table, and her hand comes back, and she says, "It said that when you defended your dissertation, and I shook your hand in that corridor, and I walked away, I drove home and sat in my car in the car park for 22 minutes. Not because I was undecided. Because I had been decided for 2 years and the deciding had nowhere to go." Nia's chest, the specific location below the sternum where things land when they are completely accurate. 2 years before the defense, she says. "The seminar," Mara says. "The 3rd year, October. You made an argument about contested ownership of place memory in front of 12 people, and it was the most precise argument I had heard in that seminar room in 10 years. And I looked at you afterward, and I thought, I cannot supervise this person the way I have been supervising her." "You didn't change your supervision." "No," Mara says. "I changed the supervision, actually. I gave you less." Nia is quiet for a moment. Then, "You stopped coming to the Tuesday sessions." "I sent a postdoc," Mara says. "For 3 months, Nia says. "For 3 months, Mara says." Nia looks at her. "The full weight of this, the 3 months, the postdoc, the car park, the 22 minutes, the 2 years of deciding with nowhere to go, is sitting in her chest alongside the ghost warmth at her jaw and the warmth of their clasped hands and the 17th draft and everything else that is accumulating in there, which is a quantity that is becoming substantial. And then you came back to the Tuesday sessions," Nia says. "I came back to the Tuesday sessions," Mara says, "because the postdoc's supervision notes were missing the structural quality of the argument, and I told myself that was the reason." "Was it?" Mara meets her eyes. "No." The room is very, very still. The Georgian windows, the amber above, the empty glasses on the table beside the closed book, the committee card face down, the locked door, the bench on which both of them are now close enough that Nia can smell her, cedar and cold linen with something underneath that is warmer, a particular warmth that is specific to this woman at this distance, and that Nia has been in the approximate vicinity of for 8 years without ever being this close to its source. Mara's blazer is behind her on the windowsill. The black silk blouse is visible in the amber light. the collar with its open button and the dark silk bralette visible at the neckline. A trace of it, the fabric's quality, the way the amber finds it. Nia is aware of this in the periphery of her attention, while the center of her attention is on Mara's face. Mara says, "Tell me the thing you didn't put in the acknowledgements. Not even the 8th version. The thing before the 8th version." Nia's heart is doing something specific and unhurried in her chest. The amber pendant makes no sound. The Georgian windows hold the dark. The city outside continues in its ordinary evening and has no idea. "The thing I didn't put in the acknowledgements," Nia says. "The thing before the 8th version," Mara says. "The true version." Nia looks at their hands, at the closed book, at the window, at Mara. "The true version," she says, "is that you were not a supervisor I outgrew. You were a standard I could not reach toward without becoming someone who was in a specific kind of trouble, and I have been in that trouble for 8 years. And the book is partially about what happens when the thing you cannot name shapes the thing you are making." The silence that follows this is not empty. It is the silence of a room that has just received a true thing. Mara is looking at her with the expression that has been building all evening. The controlled containment finally containing something that is not willing to stay contained. The dark eyes with the amber reflected in them. Everything she has been holding with both hands for 3 years, visibly at the surface of her composure. "The book is about contested landscapes as repositories of political memory," Mara says. "Yes," Nia says. "That's one true thing about it," Mara says. "Yes," Nia says. Mara says, "That one. I guess that one." And then she says Nia's name, not doctor, not the professional register, not the supervisory register, not the collegial register, her name. In the voice that is not the professor of cultural geography's voice, lower than that, more careful than that, the voice from the end of the defense and from the edge of one email at 11 p.m. in the 3rd year. The voice that has the quality of something that has been kept at a careful temperature and is now, deliberately, being allowed to change. And her arm, the one not holding Nia's hand, moves from where it has been resting at her own side, and her hand goes to the back of Nia's neck. The warmth of it, the full warmth of her palm flat at the base of Nia's skull, not uncertain, not tentative, not exploratory, present and specific and complete. The grip of someone who has made a decision and is executing it with the same precision they bring to every other decision. The warmth Nia has been not imagining for 3 years, arriving now at exactly the location where she has been not imagining it. Nia goes still, not the stillness of shock. The stillness of a body that has received the thing it has been waiting for and needs a moment for the reception to complete. Mara's thumb at the back of Nia's neck moves, a single slow movement from the base of the skull along the upper line of the neck and back. And the warmth of it travels through Nia's body in a specific path that has nothing to do with temperature and everything to do with what happens when someone who has never been uncertain performs a gesture with complete certainty for the first time. Mara's face is close, the cedar and cold linen scent, warmer now, specific at this proximity, and underneath it, the particular warmth of her skin and the amber light and the exhale that is coming from Mara at close range. Controlled, shaped, but losing its shape at the edges in the way that all controlled things lose their shape when they are close enough to the thing they have been controlled about. Mara leans forward, the arm behind Nia's shoulder bringing her close, her face at the level of Nia's collarbone, angled up, looking at Nia from that nearness with the dark eyes, and the amber in them, and the composure in full visible cost. "Tell me the one thing," she says, her exhale warm against Nia's collarbone, "that you didn't put in the acknowledgements." Nia looks down at her. The top of the high twist, the fallen strands, the dark silk at this nearness, the hand at the back of her neck with its deliberate, steady warmth. She says, "You were the thing the book was trying to be the size of." Mara is still for a moment that is not a pause. It is the moment of someone who has just received an accurate statement and is letting the accuracy complete its landing. Then she exhales, and the exhale against Nia's collarbone is the most honest sound Nia has heard all evening, small and controlled, and losing its control at the very end of it. A breath that was a professional exhale for its first 3 quarters and becomes, in its final quarter, just a breath. The breath of someone whose composure has been doing the work of 3 years in one room and is not doing that work anymore. Mara says, "That one. I guessed that one." And her hand at the back of Nia's neck tightens. Specific even, both the tightening and the grip. And her face moves from the collarbone upward. A closeness that is becoming the specific closeness of one face toward another. Nia puts her hand at Mara's jaw. She tilts her face upward, 2 fingers under the jaw, the angle deliberate, unhurried, and she looks at her. The amber light on both their faces. The dark eyes with everything in them. The edge of the composure where it has been meeting the thing it was composing all evening. She looks at her for a long time. Mara does not look away. Nia says, "You didn't need to guess. You wrote it." The room, the amber, the window. And then Mara's hand at the back of Nia's neck moves. Both hands now. The one that held Nia's hand is free. And both hands are at Nia's face. The full palms, the warmth of them on either side. Holding her face the way the book was held. With both hands, slowly, deliberately, as though this belongs to her and she is handling it with the care that belonging requires. And Mara's face is at Nia's cheek, and the warmth of her mouth is against Nia's cheekbone, the side of her face, and she holds there for 1 breath, 2, the warmth of it, present and deliberate and not moving, not rushing, not anything except exactly what it is, the most careful and most specific arrival. And then her mouth moves, the smallest increment, from cheekbone along the jaw toward the corner of Nia's mouth, and stops there, at the corner, and holds there. Nia's breathing, Mara's breathing against her jaw, the warmth of both. Nia's hand at Mara's jaw, still there, 2 fingers, the angle still tilted, moves. She moves her thumb across Mara's jaw slowly, the pad of her thumb on the specific line of bone, and Mara at the corner of her mouth makes a sound that is very small and very controlled, and is, in its smallest fraction, the sound of control finishing its work. Mara says, against the corner of Nia's mouth, "Nia," her name, the true one, the version with no professional prefix and no institutional context and no careful temperature, and Nia turns her face the final fraction of an inch, and the space closes. And the room is very still and very warm, and the amber pendant light is above them, and the Georgian windows hold everything that is not inside the room and keep it there, outside, where it belongs. At 11 o'clock, the reception room is dark except for the exterior light through the tall windows, the ambient glow of the city making the glass luminous, the amber pendants switched off somewhere in the last hour, both women having not noticed the switch or not cared about it. The empty glasses are on the table. The book is beside them, face up, closed, with both their hands resting on the bench beside it. Mara takes Nia's hand from the bench surface. Both of her own hands, the same deliberate handling as the book and the face, taking it slowly, fully, turning it palm up and closing both her hands around it. She does not let go. The quality of the holding is the quality of someone who has been deciding whether to hold something for 3 years and has, at 11 o'clock on an October evening, in a faculty club reception room with the pendants off and the Georgian windows letting in the city's light, finished deciding. They are not talking. There are 17 unsent drafts that exist now only in Mara's account of them. Not in any server, not in any folder, not in any inbox. Nia has not asked to read them. Mara has not offered. This is an agreement they have made without making it, which is the form of agreement that both of them understand and that requires no drafting. The book is between them. The verso page is still unread in the sense that neither of them has read it aloud, which is a different kind of unread. Nia's name in her own formulation. Mara's name in the structure she found. Outside, the city is in its ordinary October dark. The traffic sounds the distant bells of the university tower marking 11. The pedestrian sounds from the street below. All of it at a remove. All of it correctly outside. Mara is looking at the window. Nia is looking at Mara's profile. The line of it, the high twist with most of its strands fallen now, the dark silk blouse with both its top buttons open, the specific stillness of her face when she is not performing anything, which is a face Nia has seen rarely and recognizes completely. She is aware of her own blush lace bralette, visible at the open collar of the burgundy blouse, the one she bought when the shortlist call came, the one she called coincidence, the one that has been the correct choice all along, and the coincidence has been revised. The 17th draft, she says. Mara turns her head. What would you have sent? Nia says. The deleted version. If you hadn't deleted it. Mara looks at her. Both hands still around Nia's hand, the warmth of them specific and present. I think, Mara says, you already know. I know the content, Nia says. I want the subject line. Mara is quiet for a moment. Then the corner of her mouth moves, the smallest version of something that is not quite a smile and is, in its smallness, more expensive than a full one would be. The subject line, she says, was the secondary source. Nia looks at her. You titled the correspondence, she says. I titled the email, Mara says. I didn't send the email. I sent you the title. The quality of this, the precision of having deleted the body and kept only the header, the specific form of restraint that is also a specific form of communication, the version of the thing that is accurate without being complete, is so exactly Mara that Nia's chest does the thing it has been doing all evening, but this time with a warmth that is not accumulation or tension or the cost of containment. This time the warmth is something else, something that has no better vocabulary than what it is. The secondary source, Nia says. It's a technical term, Mara says. It is, Nia says. In research methodology, a secondary source is evidence from someone who is not directly present at the primary event, who has it secondhand. Yes, Mara says. Which would mean, Nia says, that you were naming yourself. Mara's hands around Nia's hand tighten the fraction they have been tightening all evening when something arrives that is accurate enough to cost. I was naming the position I put myself in, she says. Nia looks at her, the window light, the fallen strands, the hands. You walked away from the primary source, she says. Yes, Mara says, and spent 3 years as the secondary. Yes, Mara says. Nia turns their hands over, both of them, the slow turn until Mara's hands are underneath and Nia's are on top, and she presses down once, deliberate, and holds. You're not the secondary source, she says. Mara looks at their hands, then she looks at Nia. No, she says. Not tonight. The city outside marks 11. The Georgian windows hold the light. And on the windowsill, at the far edge of Nia's vision, is the committee card. The one Mara turned in her hands all evening. The one she set down before she turned and brought her mouth to Nia's jaw. The one that has been face down on the table since then. But it is not on the table anymore. It is on the windowsill. Nia will notice this when she passes it on her way out, sometime past midnight, and she will pick it up, and she will turn it over, and on the blank reverse, in Mara's precise, specific handwriting, the hand she has seen on 30 drafts and in 17 emails, and on the cover pages of 5 years of her own work, returned with corrections, there will be one word. No date, no signature. The word she will find there on the small white rectangle in the morning light of the corridor is the word that has never appeared in 17 emails, the word that has no professional vocabulary, the word that was drafted and not sent until now. One word, on a committee card, which is also a primary source.